The Life, Love, and Leadership podcast is a presentation of Marissa Q. Paine International, Dr. James Paine Speaks, and the Foundation for Successful Marriages with Rare Gem Productions. Learn more at successfulmarriages.org. And here are your hosts, the Dr. and the Mrs. Marissa Q. Paine and Dr. James Paine.
Welcome back to Life, Love, and Leadership with Dr. James and Marissa Q. Paine. I'm Marissa Q. Paine.
And I'm Dr. James Paine, and we're delighted that you're with us for another episode of Life, Love, and Leadership. Listen, we have a hot topic today. We're talking about criticism, so this should be real interesting. But first, let's find out what's on your mind, sweetheart. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind?
Yeah.
What is on my mind? I have been catching up on Essence Fest because somehow I missed that my shero, Michelle Obama, was going to be there. So I was devastated about that. But I have been catching it on YouTube, and I was actually surprised to discover that we actually have a lot in common with the Obamas.
Wow. Okay. This is going to be real good.
I know. I don't know if you saw, well, you did. You saw or you heard when I was listening to it, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily that you watched it, but a couple of things stood out to me. So number one, she was not originally impressed by Barack Obama.
Which is crazy, right?
Just like I was not impressed by you. So I thought that was hilarious,
Wow,
right? We have that in common.
Okay.
They've been married, I think she said 26 years. So basically 2 years ahead of us. She's been very open about the fact that they've been to marriage counseling. And one of the things I loved about the interview that she did with Gayle King, she said, we don't tell the truth about the work that it takes to be married.
Wow.
And I was just like, same, right? I feel the same way, right?
Absolutely. No, I did hear the part she was talking about, people look at them and they think about the fist bump and they think about relationship goals.
Right.
And they look at Barak and Michelle and they're like, this is what the goal is.
Right.
But they have no idea in her own judgment, her own explanation of what that relationship is like and what they've had to do in terms of work to get it there.
Yeah. And she said she felt a sense of duty, right, to kind of share that it's not all glitz and glamour all the time, that marriages work. Something she said really struck me too. She said, we've learned how to argue. And I was just like, OMG, fight of the week, right? Like, we are the same people.
Right, okay.
I know how to pick a shero. You hear me? Like, she is my girl.
Wow.
I loved it. They are almost empty nesters. They're pretty much empty nesters. Like, we have so much in common. I think we should have them on the show.
I agree. So Barak and Michelle, if you're listening, we would love to have you on Life, Love, and Leadership. We think you could add great value to every point.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Yes.
The other thing I thought was interesting was, she talked about how he gets celebrated or he would be celebrated for changing a diaper. And it's like, oh my gosh, he's such a great dad or what have you. And she, meanwhile has been like arranging daycare and scheduling doctor's appointments and handling the fevers and all of that stuff. And no one's like, oh, great mom, like celebrating and applauding her. And it really brought me back to one of the reasons I fell in love with Michelle Obama. I will never, ever forget it. It was like a defining moment for me. And this was when he was still Senator Obama and they were on the Oprah Winfrey Show when she was still having the Oprah Winfrey Show. So that tells you, how long ago this was. But Oprah was interviewing them and she went to Michelle and she was, and I didn't know who they were really at the time. But she went to Michelle and she asked her, she was like, what's it like to be with such a powerful force, of a man? And Michelle was like, well, Oprah, I work too, And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sure I was like in my laptop just kind of listening in the background and like my ears perked up and I had to stand at attention and look at I was like, who is this woman?
I remember that episode and I think the link, because Oprah perked up too. Her whole demeanor changed and it was crazy. And so Michelle was like, Oprah, I have a job.
Right. She's like, I'm like, queen. Yes, queen. And so, yeah, so that's what's been on my mind. I have just been like relishing in Michelle Obama at Essence Fest, even though I'm several weeks late, but I didn't get the memo. I'm sad about it, but, hopefully we'll have them on the show.
Yeah, hopefully so. And, she has sold, I think, over 12 million books.
Yeah, 12 million copies. Yeah.
And listen, we'd love
40 languages, translated into 40 languages.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know how to pick a role model. You hear me? Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible. But, the one thing, and it's almost a little embarrassing to say, but the first thing I noticed when I caught it on your computer screen was her hair.
Her hair.
I had never seen her hair down like that. I was like, is that Michelle?
Oh, wow. You're so precious.
Yes, the hair caught my attention.
She natural in all of her beauty and all of her glory, which I love.
I was like, Michelle Obama is like, she's a homegirl. Like, she's cool.
Well, you and hair, like, oh my gosh. I don't know how you all feel or what your partners are like, but do people like have trouble with their partners and their hair? Like, I don't necessarily do my hair based on your preferences, because if I did, I would still be like in a mushroom with my hair over my right eye and stacks on the side from basically what I looked like in high school.
No, we evolved from that.
You never you don't like any change. Like, you never like my new hair, whatever it is.
It takes a while to grow on me.
Right. And then when I change it, you're like, why did you change your hair? I'm like, you didn't like that hair. And it's so frustrating. I'm just like, I can't with you and hair. Like, so it doesn't surprise me that that's what you noticed, because it's different. And so, of course, that's the first thing you noticed, that her hair was different.
True story. True story. First thing I noticed. And then the second question was, do I like this?
Who cares?
Nobody.
Your hair is different, too.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you had to go there.
I'm just saying.
My hair is missing.
I think your hair is adorable.
Well, thank you. That means you think my scalp is adorable.
Don't say that. It's adorable. I love it.
We'll go with it.
And I love you.
I love you too, baby.
All right. So let's talk about the fight of the week. So it's actually not too confrontational this week. This is more of a philosophical, ongoing debate, I would say.
Sure.
So we've got 3 children. They're all young adults now. The younger 2 attended private school. All of the kids worked, and we're suburbanites. So we didn't really have public transportation. Our city isn't really a big public transportation city anyway, and we're sort of outside of the public transportation line. So we really had to, figure out a transportation option for them. And so we did that. We had what we call the kid car, which is basically the hand-me-down vehicle of ours, right? So it started with our minivan. Mm-hmm. Our youngest 2 basically drove a minivan for much of their high school career until they had an accident and totaled it.
Totaled a minivan.
Thanks a lot. It was paid off.
Yep.
So that was the first kid car. And then basically when that got totaled, they inherited.
They got upgraded.
Yep. Your car. Theoretically, it was an upgrade.
It was a great upgrade for them. Well, not paying anything for your vehicle.
It was a Cadillac Sedan DeVille 2004, though. And they, drove it till the wheels fell off. It was new to them. It was in good shape when they got it.
Exactly.
They did run it into the ground. I say till the wheels fell off, literally.
Literally.
Because it was like missing hubcaps.
We have to do a show on appreciating things, because I've never seen anything quite like that. Like, I showed up one day and like the whole front grille of the car was off.
Gone.
And I'm pulling them in the room. I'm like, where is the grill to the car?
And don't nobody know nothing. So they had that car really until it wouldn't pass inspection anymore. Now they're both in college. And so we were kind of faced with, what do we do now? And so, unfortunately, we had to buy a car, which we weren't happy about. We actually learned from our oldest, who, when he graduated from college, purchased a used Honda Accord, and that has treated him pretty well. So we took a note from his playbook and bought them a used Honda. Recently, because they're home for the summer, we pull up and the Honda is almost flat.
Near flat.
Yeah. And, so you notice it, tell them to go get air in the tire. Of course, the tire turns out has a nail in it, can't be repaired. Now we need a new tire. And so you decide that they have to pay for, or actually that our daughter has to pay for it, who's the rising senior. And she negotiates, as she always does, that she feels like she shouldn't have to do it by herself, that her brother, who's the rising sophomore, should also have to pay. Mm-hmm. Now, rising sophomore is not working. That's a whole other episode. Not currently working this summer because whatever, or hadn't started his job yet. And so he really has no income coming in yet. But she felt like it was unfair for her to have to pay for it herself.
And his issue, although it's technically the kid car, he doesn't necessarily drive it.
Yeah, he drives my car most of the time.
Yeah, he'll drive one of our cars. And so, he didn't necessarily feel it was fair for him to be included in that.
Right. And so I didn't necessarily disagree that they should pay for the tire. I just know that realistically speaking, one, he doesn't have the money. So why are we having this conversation? Because he don't have any money. And two, if we make her pay for the tire, she won't have any money left anyway. And then we're just going to have to pay for something else. So it wasn't that I didn't agree. I was just like, what's the point? Like, go on and pay for the stupid tire. Like, we make them pay for tickets if they get a ticket or what have you. But you wanted them to pay. Again, it wasn't that I didn't think they should have to pay. I just felt like it was a waste of time to go through that.
Yeah. And philosophically, from my standpoint, obviously, I have a rising senior in college and a rising sophomore. And I'm wanting them to kind of begin to take the reins a little bit for being responsible for things and kind of get a sense for what that cost looks like in real time. So I had it all worked out. So the youngest was going to be starting his 2 jobs in like a week. And so that would give him an opportunity to kind of earn some money to contribute to it. And so that was kind of the plan. Yeah.
So what happened? Because I just basically tapped out the conversation. I don't even know.
Yep. So initially, I got to the place. I said, okay, well, I want them to kind of feel this pinch a little bit. And so I said, okay, I will pay half. Because when we took it in, what we found was that the one tire had a nail in it, but the other tire, the tread wear was so gone that both front tires needed to be replaced, which put the total, just near around $400 or something like that. So I said, okay, I'll pay half. And I felt pretty good about that because they had some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. And then I circled back around and I say, well, I'm kind of, I hear what you're saying about, allowing her to kind of save so she has some money. That's less money I have to send her in the fall when she returns to college. And so I kind of circled back, and you may recall I called and asked you. I said, well, this is what I'm thinking, but I want to give you the opportunity to influence my judgment a little bit.
Well, that was before the whole, because I didn't know about this 2-tire. You asked me what I thought, and I was like, I don't think it's worth it. Right.
This was the second time.
Okay.
Yeah. So we talked about it initially, but then I circled back to ask a different question.
Oh, which was what?
This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we're going to do half, or I'm going to do half. And kind of what do you think about that?
I promise this is the first time I'm hearing that. I don't remember this at all. But okay, you know what? And so what did I say?
The memory is the first thing to go, ladies and gentlemen. The memory is the first thing to go.
I'm so curious.
And so your response was just, no, I really think that we should just go ahead and do it. Again, it's going to be one less thing we have to pay for in the fall.
That sounds like something I might say.
When I settled in and processed it a little bit more, I say, yeah, that's true. It's one less thing, we'll have to pay for in the fall if we just do damage control here.
I got you. I think I didn't have my listening ears on because I like the idea of them paying half, like $100 a piece. I think that would have been a good idea. Oh my God, that would have been that's a really
an interesting point,
because
because you just said you didn't have your listening ears on, yet you had your speaking mouth going.
Oh,
Ooh, so you are speaking, but you're not listening. Oh my God, we got to do a show on that.
cut the tape. Anyway. This one didn't end up being like Knockdown Dragout,
Right.
thank goodness. But I would say we've had Knockdown Dragouts about parenting for sure in the past. What do you think about that? Like, how do you get to a place where, you know, you're working as a partnership in parenting and not on opposite sides of the ring?
Well, for me, it's recognizing I have a very, very strong opinion. And I believe firmly that what I think and feel is usually right. What I've learned over, nearly 25 years of marriage is it's critical to let your partner influence you and let them add a verse to your thinking because they add value. You marry somebody, ideally, and Michelle Obama spoke about this, marrying your equal, marrying somebody you respect, and marrying somebody as strong as you. So if you marry within those three phases of marriage, then, you might as well let them influence you because they bring value to the table. So you may be able to see things that I don't see in a scenario.
That's interesting. Really, really interesting. I like that. Like, I feel like you're a different person on this podcast than who I get at home. I'm just like, who are you right now?
It's so awkward.
I would have loved you as we were going through, because I think that we struggled a lot with, I think that, there's conversation about, how women, they spoil their sons and raise their daughters.
Love their sons and raise their daughters.
Love their sons and raise their daughters. And, that we're too easy on our sons and that sort of thing. And that you bring balance
Correct.
in that. I don't know. Do you think that played out in our parenting?
No.
I don't think so because
No.
I'm pretty tough.
Yeah, I think, I take it back. I do think that played out to some degree where you were somewhat harder on our daughter than you were on the boys. Yeah.
I wonder what they would say because I feel like I was, because I really, as a social worker, I tried really hard to be fairly gender neutral in terms of how I treated them for the most part. And I definitely had high expectations across the board. I feel like to some extent, I feel like I was the disciplinarian and you were the fun guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I felt like I was always the bad guy most of the time. And if I really needed hard reinforcement, I would come to you.
I would bring hard reinforcement.
Part.
For the most part, I tried to really, really, engage my kids in a fun, interactive way.
Yeah, because I think the kids would call me, I know they call me critical.
Yes.
Because I was tough. I'm a tough cookie.
Yeah. And I was tough when I needed to be tough.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I didn't make tough normative, for them.
I know, and that's not fair. Which is why I'm like, who are you right now? I don't even know you.
Good cop, bad cop. Good cop, bad cop. Come on.
So yeah, I think it, balances, and as always, communication. I don't think we ever really talked about it. It's just kind of how it landed. But I think that that's what would cause tension maybe in the relationship. If there was going to be a fight, it would be because maybe I was frustrated that I was, being a disciplinarian, or maybe you weren't being involved enough, or you had an opinion all of a sudden, but you hadn't been involved in the decisions leading up to or something like that.
And I think our styles are different
Definitely.
too. You have a tendency to say a lot. My tendency is not to necessarily speak often.
True.
But when I speak, it's poignant and I mean what I say.
True.
And so my tendency is to process, go in my cave, process. And when I come out with what I want to say, bring that to bear. whereas you process by speaking, I think. So I just think our styles are a little different.
Yeah, I agree. In the case of the tire, we weren't too far off, which is great. There's been times where we were, and sometimes the kids, they can smell fear. They can smell discontent. They know, because we have those different styles, they know who to go to for what.
Exactly.
And I think, ultimately we have to stay together as a team so that we are parenting, right? And that we don't allow them to manipulate the system. Right. I think once we kind of began to learn the nuances, because just like we know the nuances, they definitely pick up on the nuances. They picked up on them before we did.
Yep.
And so I think what really helped us is that once we kind of knew that ultimately it's us against them.
Exactly.
At the end, and we started working together, and communicating with each other, and saying, hey, what did your mom say? Or what did your dad say?
Yep.
And talking through it. Like you said, you called me for reinforcement or a different perspective. I think that's how we got in partnership and ultimately doing the best we can. And, the jury's still out in terms of how they'll wind up. But Lord knows we tried.
Lord knows we tried. So kind of speaking about the tire, you kind of mentioned that you didn't necessarily have your listening ears on, but that you were speaking and kind of offering some feedback without necessarily hearing exactly what was taking place. And I think in a lot of cases that can lead to criticism. And we can become critical of our spouses, our mates in relationship. And criticism is one of the most deadliest things you can have in a relationship, because it's about being critical of a person. It's focusing negative response to a person instead of working objectively to look at a situation and express perhaps what you didn't like about the situation or what bothered you about the situation, but it's directing all of your energy and attention and negative response feedback toward that person.
Yeah, it's like one of the 4 deadly horsemen from research. Gottman's research about marriage, and he's sort of a researcher that predicts the success of marriage. And there are 4 kind of behaviors or attributes that can predict whether a marriage is going to make it or not, or predict divorce. And criticism is one of those 4. And it's big. It's
real big. I know in our relationship, and it took me a long time to kind of work through this criticism piece.
Did you work through it?
Yes, I've worked through it. Thank you very much.
Are you working through it?
I have worked and I'm working through it.
There. All right. Awesome.
So you're always working to stay on top of of criticism. But one of the things I was fairly critical of is my wife and I are very different in terms of things and kind of how we value things. And so she would say often that perhaps I coveted things because, like, if I have something really nice, I take extreme good care of it and that sort of thing. I'm always attentive to, taking care of its needs and making sure it's up to top notch. Look,
I'm taking deep breaths right now.
My wife, on the other hand, I used to characterize her as someone who was negligent toward nice things. And
so I'm the opposite of the furniture store that has the slogan, "You like nice things." I'm negligent in nice things is what you're saying. Okay.
And so one of the criticisms that I used to rail against my wife, and mind you, let me set it up right. So we had just bought this nice SUV, probably had the thing for maybe 6-8 months. And she was backing out of the driveway and in maneuvering the car, she found the trash can in her way. And so rather than moving the trash can, she used the truck to move the trash can. And then like a week later, we're like, wow, where did this dent come from? And she's like, oh, that must have happened when I moved the trash can with the truck. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Who moves a trash can with a brand new truck. But for her, it's a utilitarian vehicle. It's for a purpose to move around. If something needs to be moved in the interim while she's driving, that just needs to happen. It's not for look or show or anything like that, because she doesn't covet things. And so we had this whole big thing about, that. And so, what do you say to that?
Where are you going with this story?
Well, I'm going to the fact that I labeled you as someone who was negligent of nice things. Okay. And that was my criticism to you. More dialogue led to understanding you're not necessarily negligent of nice things. You just look at them differently than I do.
Oh, I'm supposed to say something now. I don't even know what to say. Okay. So, first of all, I did not know that. I think that's a terrible example for talking about criticism. But since that's the one you use, that's the one I'll talk about.
I have more.
I didn't know. I mean, like you said, it's a utility vehicle. So, and this is like in my mind, the little plastic trash bin thing. So I'm just,
but it fought back though. It fought back.
It's got a bumper. I'm just thinking, I'm like, no big deal. I'm just pushing it out the way and I'm on my way. I did not know that it was actually, I had no idea. And, technically we still don't know. I mean, maybe somebody hit me and that's where it happened. I'm like, oh, maybe that's what happened, but we really don't know because nobody got out and looked at the time. So it could have been something else.
Yeah. And so I think as we consider criticism in this scenario, the cousins to criticism, judgment and expectation kind of showed up as well, because I made a judgment of you that, you intended to damage the vehicle by moving a trash can with the vehicle, which just didn't make any sense to me.
Right. And then you attacked me as a result of it. You label me as irresponsible, as, all of these things, and obviously never let them go because we still talking about it. I don't know, 10 years later.
That's show information.
What?
But I think, the important thing is recognizing that not only did you not intend for the damage to occur, but I put that judgment there that, you intended for something to occur wrong. And I had an expectation that if it were me, if you were doing things the right way, you would get out, move the trash can. In your mind, you're thinking, what? If I just move it with the vehicle, it's not going to cause damage and I'm quickly on my way.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking anything about it. It was a non-issue. And like you said, to you, this is a new vehicle and you would never, try to move something or trash can, like that would never occur to you. To me, it's a vehicle, a sport utility vehicle at that, therefore moving stuff, or this is you can get up on the sidewalk and, ride. Like that's the whole purpose of it. I'm like, woo, we got a truck now. Yay. I don't have to worry about.
Have you ever seen a commercial where the truck moved the can? I'm just curious.
Probably. Yes. But I think that, criticism on a day-to-day basis, it's not usually as dramatic as that. I think it can be a lot subtler, or a lot more subtle, I should say, when we kind of throw the little jabs or accusations at our partner. And I think they can become like part of our couple culture if we're not careful.
Right.
Where we're just saying, oh, you're so, like I said, you're so irresponsible, or you're so careless, or you're so, insert whatever it is that you say.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, there's nothing empowering or uplifting.
Sure.
The only thing that's doing is really dividing, right? Pulling your partner away from you. There's nothing about it that's drawing them to you. And really what you want to do in relationship is use language that endears your partner to you. And so how do you get away from verbally attacking the personality or the character of your partner? And sometimes, you know, within your defense, you know, I am, let's see, what word would I use? Like, I am a little less, you know, I lose stuff a lot. Or, you know, I mean, I wouldn't call it careless. I just am a little less vigilant than you. You know, I think you are on the OCD side.
And you're on the other side of the pendulum.
You know, a little less, you know, I'm just not quite loosey-goosey, but not too far from it.
Like almost leaving your Mac in South America. Like at the airport,
but who does it on purpose? I don't do it on purpose, but that's a great example, right? That's a great example. So I was in Paraguay and going through airport transportation. It was actually my first time being international. So the people aren't necessarily speaking English. I was a little, you know, it's a little stressed. It's a little tense. And I had multiple things in multiple baskets. And I left my laptop. When putting all my stuff back, I neglected to get my laptop out of the basket. And so when I got to, we were in Buenos Aires, I got into the airport security and went into my bag to pull my laptop out and realized that it wasn't there. And so went into this panic mode and, you know, started calling the airport and all of that, trying to figure out how to get my laptop. And so for you, you're just like, oh my gosh, how could you be so irresponsible? Yeah. This is a $1,500 computer system or what have you. Yeah, that's not helpful. Right. And I didn't do it on purpose. Sure. Right. Like, so it's like that's a criticism and completely not helpful right now.
Right.
So how do you break criticism? What's the alternative to it? What I was saying is that in that situation, yes, I deserved it. I mean, I don't deserve the criticism, but I definitely did something that was less than ideal. But I certainly don't need more people attacking me for it. I feel bad enough as it is. And so I always say, is there something that you need in the situation? Does it affect you? And if so, that's what you want to advocate for. And that's what you want to say, right? So you want to talk about your feelings using I statements, and you want to express your need from a positive vantage point. In the case of the laptop, for example, it wasn't your laptop necessarily. And so I don't know that necessarily affected you. So really in that scenario, what I needed from you was compassion.
Sure.
And empathy, not necessarily criticism.
Right.
But let's say it was your laptop,
Which would never happen, but
of course.
For grins, let's just throw it out there.
Well, let's say I used you. Are you saying you wouldn't let me take your laptop? I'm saying let's say I had your laptop with me.
Oh, no.
But let's say it was yours. So rather than saying, oh, my God, I can't believe you so irresponsible, et cetera, and say, I'm frustrated. Can you do everything you can to get it back? If you can't, can you download from the cloud to see if we can recover the file or what have you? Like, use I statements and express what you need from a positive perspective. You know, again, ultimately you want to attack the problem, not the person.
Not the person.
And that is more endearing, right? Because again, all criticism does is like take jabs at making withdrawals from your love bank.
Yep.
And you want to make as many deposits as you possibly can.
Yep.
And you do that over a long period of time and you find yourself in trouble.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So criticism, again, is about attacking the person, doesn't address the issue. And it assumes a position of superiority. And I think the third layer of that is it assumes negative intent. And it assumes those things. And so when you make those assumptions and throw those assumptions on your partner, you have to be careful. Because nobody is intentionally looking to damage things. Nobody's intentionally looking to lose things or whatever the thing may be in your relationship that you're critical about with your partner. It's not something that they are necessarily intending to do. So I think offering thoughtful compassion to your partner and working to restore them is definitely the route to take.
I just want to hear you say, can you just say all of that again? I just
We
feel
got it
so
on, we got it on
attracted to
tape.
you right now.
Okay, show over. We out. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent one from another.
Yeah, so we can't actually leave just yet because we have a question from a listener, which is actually quite appropriate for where we are right now. The question is, with everything that you have going on, and I know that you guys are busy, how do you keep your marriage spicy?
Great question. I think, the way we work to keep it spicy is we're intentional about relationship. So we're intentional about spending time together. We're intentional about, just shutting off and building boundaries around work and
relationship does not sound spicy.
Relationship doesn't sound spicy.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're intentional. We're intentional just about finding time to be husband and wife, finding time to be boyfriend, girlfriend, finding time to be lovers, finding time to be tourists and just, exploring the world. And so just being intentional about the time you spend with your spouse and making sure that you have a cutoff switch. I always process it from the standpoint of who's going to be on the front row of my funeral. And, that's who gets the bulk of my time and attention. And nobody's going to be at the front row of my funeral talking about something, he grew the business by 30%. But, it's going to be the story and the love that we share that will be recounted and thought about. So that's how we process it, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we prioritize each other. And we prioritize our quality time as much as we possibly can. I have a personal motto, work hard, play hard, and so I am intentional about planning vacation and time away because a lot of times we don't necessarily get to let our hair down until we can get away. And getaway doesn't always necessarily mean, traveling for, we do quite a bit of travel now, but we haven't always had that luxury, but we definitely I'm fanatical about the calendar and I coordinate with his calendar and I make sure he knows, okay, we're doing this on this date. I'm coming off of a pretty busy season where I've been really in the zone, the work zone. And now that kind of period is lifted, I can already tell that the spontaneity in our relationship is better and I've actually been cooking more and the sex life has been better. It's just better.
Yay!
And so you definitely have seasons where it's busy, but you're intentional about paying attention to not letting that time go too far and just making sure that you're doing the stuff that matters. I know my husband's love language. And so I'm intentional about making sure that I affirm him and connect with him throughout the day in ways that make a difference for him. And so I think loving your partner the way they need to be loved buys you time. It stretches the time. If his love language is quality time and you're buying him gifts, then that's not going to necessarily connect with him. So you have to do quality time. But if if the love language is gifts, then you can get them an unexpected gift and that will buy you some time, So it's really just about prioritization and making sure you're intentional about it and making sure when you do have the time, it's quality, right? And quality is based on what brings them joy.
I couldn't agree with you more. So I think what I heard you say is it's about giving them what they want, what they need.
Right.
It's the lesson we get every time we go to a store and you give somebody $100 bill. They ask you kind of how you want your change back. And so we want to do the same thing in relationship. How do you want it back? What do you need from me in order for this to work well for you? And so being intentional about that. And then I think the second thing that comes to mind for me is just recognizing that relationship, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so there are going to be some seasons where, she's going to be extremely busy working on a project. There are going to be seasons I'm extremely busy working on a project, but we understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And we don't lose ourselves over seasonal things because we know ultimately we're in it for the long haul.
Right. And check in. I think check-ins are important too. I could ask him, is your marriage spicy right now? And if it's not, what can I do to make it better? Right? Don't make assumptions. Check in and ask them. That's critical and important. And then you'll know and you don't have to assume.
Yeah. And I think recognizing that your level of spicy may not be 50 Shades of Gray. It may be something different. So it's about what works for that relationship. Whatever is spicy in your relationship, do that. Don't look external to try to find what your spicy should be.
Right.
But major in your mate. Like you go to school and you major in a subject, major in your mate to understand what is spicy in your relationship and do that.
Right. Not what you see on TV.
Yes.
What works in your house.
Absolutely.
Yay. All right. So I think with that, we are going to call that a show. Thank you guys so much for listening. We are a new podcast. So if you are enjoying it, please do us a favor and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And don't keep us to yourself. Help us spread the word. Share new episodes we have each week. You can use the hashtag L3Podcast or Life, Love, and Leadership and give us a shout out. Share it with 3, 4, 5 of your friends. Make sure you subscribe and submit your questions to successfulmarriages.org. We look forward to talking with you next week.
See you guys next week.
This is Life, Love, and Leadership. The Life, Love, and Leadership podcast is a presentation of Marissa Q. Paine International, Dr. James Paine Speaks, and the Foundation for Successful Marriages. Connect with us. Find us and follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more about our guests, show notes, services, events, or to get involved, visit successfulmarriages.org. Life, Love, and Leadership is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.